Hello everyone, it's Tuesday the 26th of July. I'm Charlotte and this is Chatting in Cars, where I talk about random shit, maybe experiences I've gone through, maybe you can find them relational, or relatable I should say. You're going to hear a lot of beeping, you're going to hear me swearing, so if you don't want to hear any of that, or if you don't want to hear the content, that's absolutely your choice and you can go and find something else to listen to. That's up to you. Perks of being a grown-ass adult. Basically, I talk about subjects whilst driving to work, so you might hear the indicator, you might hear me swearing at people who can't drive. It's a 45-minute drive today, so the topic for today is food banks. I have a fair amount of experience with food banks, I'm afraid to say, or in a good way. It's a good thing sometimes to know what resources you have to use. I know in the UK right now, with the growing cost of living, everybody's really worried about making ends meet. A lot of people going through horrible financial hardship. I can definitely relate. I've been through that myself. Most of my childhood was poverty-based. It wasn't until I got out of home that I actually had some money, and even then I had to get it myself. My parents weren't the most reliable people who I could have around. I think it was a case more of children having children at that stage. They weren't in any way too young to have kids. I mean, my mum was 28 when she had me, but I was the third born of four. My dad was 30, so you'd think by then they'd have some experience with, what it means to financially supply to a family. But lots of circumstances happened, some of which were unavoidable. Some of which were avoidable. But generally, my childhood was, for the large part, government funded by the welfare system. So, for a large part of that, I don't think my mum actually got her teaching job until I must have been about 16. So I was nearly out of the house by the time we actually had some income coming in. My dad is, to a certain degree, he still is, an accountant, believe it or not. So we should have been quids in growing up, but because, as in another podcast I'm going to talk about, he has what I deem Peter Pan syndrome, he couldn't hold down a job, essentially. So he didn't feel the need to be that responsible person. I don't know why. I mean, if you got 4 kids to feed, I think you should, if only to avoid jail. Or DCP. But as it is, we were largely on the welfare system for large chunks. I think I started when I was about 8 and right up to 16 or so. My dad had a midlife crisis nervous breakdown where he completely embraced the Peter Pan syndrome, and my mum had to take over when I was about 16. She got a job as a teacher and she became the breadwinner. And that's the reason why all the girls in my family are super independent, because she's like, I've had to deal with this. You fuckers will not deal with this. You will learn how to cope without another person. As the problem with toxic relationships is you have no one to rely on. If you're the good one I say the good one, my mum's still a berserker. But if you're the more stable one, and you don't have someone who's stable in return, who's not willing to take the load evenly, if that person fails, you're liable. So you really need to find someone. And it's important in relationships to find someone who will back you up when you need it. I'm told my parents married for love. Or considering they knew each other since they were 10, I'm more likely to believe that they just knew each other a long time. So they just ended up getting married together. So it's like, we were friends for ages. So the right thing to do is just to get married. In that regard, probably not the best reason to get married. As a result, besides my dad having severe mental issues and my mum having to take the load, which caused her to exacerbate her mental issues, it didn't exactly have a good impact on us kids, because it meant that there was a lot of unnecessary hardship, instability in the home. There was a lot of things we went without because even though we needed them, there was no access to funds to get them. As a result, basic things like food as well, which I'm still finicky about, because from previous podcasts I used to have to steal food just to, get along. And it became a thing. Like, even now, I still have a big thing about food. I'm like, if we get something nice, I'm like, ooh, this is special. Some people just look at it like, what the fuck? Why are you so attached to this? I'm like, I don't care. You get food. It's cool food. It's expensive food. It's, it's some really nice thing that's fancy. I mean, you look at the way I look at plastic cheese. It's a little bit too fetishized. It's individually wrapped, therefore it's important. But things like that, I mean, I think once you've lived out of a food bank, and we had to do it periodically, we did it quite frequently growing up because we were on the welfare and Dad didn't have a job, and even when Mum was going through uni to try and get to the teacher's degree, we still had like zero money. Although I do admit we had some interesting adventures at the food bank. Sometimes you find some really weird shit. It's like op shops. You find some really weird shit there too. It's very fun. It's like an adventure. A horrible, morbid adventure, but not quite taking the ring to Mordor, but Khazak doom. But the thing is, it's like you begin to appreciate what you are given. I mean, if you're starving and you've got nothing, any help is good help at that point. And you really do begin to appreciate the slightly fancier things that everybody takes as normal in life. It's like, for example, when I was talking about eating the crusts off my friend's sandwiches when I was a kid, because they had Nutella on it. It's like, even as an adult, I still consider Nutella to be fancy. Some people just eat it like it's nothing. It's like, oh, it's just like peanut butter. You just grab a jar and... I'm going, but it's Nutella, man. Oh my God. It's like, I should get some kind of sponsorship deal from that. Like, give me the free Nutella. I'll promote your brand so much. But no, it's you do develop a really good appreciation for slightly nicer things. I couldn't say I'd ever get into something like, truffle pizzas or some shit like that, because it's just, I don't understand it, but some people are into that. I've had caviar, I didn't think much of it. I'm sitting there going, you can get this at a sushi bar and it's ain't that great anyway. I technically can still eat it even as a vegetarian, but I don't want to because I'm not convinced what they do is nice to the fish. So that's on you. If you want to do that, I don't give a shit. That's you. But food banks, some wild adventures there. My dad used to take us on a Saturday because that was the day Mum would stay home and she'd fix the house because my dad trashed it because he's got Peter Pan syndrome and he doesn't clean. He, even now, does not clean the house or himself. Or, it's like, there's a weird thing there where men still need their mums, even when they're like in their 60s, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. There's some psych issues here. At the time when we were kids, he was also like full berserker mode. And when he wasn't full berserker mode, he was depressive. So we went through this whole stage where like, is he bipolar? Does he have borderline personality disorder? And at the time as a kid, you're trying to understand why dad's, loud as fuck and throwing things. And you're like, what did I do? So, you're like, this doesn't make sense. No one else's dad does this. So most of the time I spent, either hiding or avoiding him or hiding behind my brother. My brother took the brunt of a load of shit from him. But see, he became the father figure. So even when he moved out like 18. He moved out to save himself, I think, honestly, because he was the target at my dad's target. He was. I know my dad knew that he wasn't allowed to hit girls, but my brother, I remember him being held up against the wall at one point, just blasted by my dad. I'm going, what the fuck, dude? And I think it was because he'd sworn at him or something. It was something like that, something stupid, something menial that a teenager does, Melty little shit, and you're like, oh, shut up, dude. But my dad was a berserker. Any sign of what was perceived to be disrespect, it was like full blast. So this is my first rendition of what men are, apparently. But luckily, I have my brother to show me, no, that's not all men. That's just that one. That one is fucked in the head. The food banks, I'm going off on a tangent here. I could go all day about that. I'm trying not to, make you feel bad. Food banks, they're great. They're useful. I mean, I don't know if we got the food for free, because traditionally food banks should be free. I know you need a healthcare card in Australia, which is doled out by the welfare system. yeah, even now, when I had to go back on the welfare, back when I was homeless, I had to use a welfare card. I didn't use food banks though. I was adamant I didn't want to go back to food banks. But it's mainly because they're hard to find now. Where I was living, there was only one in the entire town, as far as I knew. And even then, I wasn't sure if it was still open, because it was the original one that I used to go back to as a kid. So when we used to go on a Saturday, Dad used to load up. We had the healthcare card. We had bags, plastic bags. We used to bring her in. I remember one time we got this massive box of cereal, and it was Space Invaders or something like that. It was like Cheerios, but without the sugar. So you can imagine it's this tasteless little thing. And it was huge. We got boxes and boxes. It was obviously one of those pallet boxes where there's like one brown box filled with about 20 smaller boxes, regular size cereal boxes. So we got stuck with that for about a month. So we were eating this shit for a month. But we got it because it was cheap. And it was like next to nothing compared to what you would have bought in, say, Woolworths or something. I mean, in Australia we've got Woolworths. Woolworths over in the UK is something completely different. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it's more like a Asda or something like that. If it still exists. I know there was a lot of shit going down with the recession. Which recession? But yeah, no, we got this massive box. And thinking back now as an adult, if you didn't mind the taste, it would have been a bargain. But because we were kids and we were like, I don't want this. I don't mind eating a few boxes of it, but to eat it for a month, I'd rather not. And as a kid, you don't understand that you should be grateful. So that's the only downfall to it. It's like, as kids are not going to understand that this is what we got and we have to use it. There's no sense of utility really with kids. It's like, why are you torturing me by giving me the same shit every day? That is the one downside I can think of it. That, and it might be a bit embarrassing to go and have to go get discount food. But our food bank was out of the way, so no one really knew that we went there. I mean, no one knew that we were poverty stricken, except that I had hand-me-down clothes and they had holes in them. And I smelled like piss. Essentially, I know I smell like piss. I know, as horrible it is, which is why I'm like uber clean now. Like, I cannot handle piss smells. Anything like that, I wear like deodorant and perfume all the time. Super clean, super washed. I cannot stand bad smells like that. Even at the gym, when people come smelling like BO, I'm angry. It's instant rage. You know, it must go back to some kind of trauma response to living in poverty. I don't know, but it's just instant rage. I remember we used to get bags of humbugs. There was a brand called Black and Gold, which was, I think honestly, IGA's home brand, essentially. It's the cheapest of the cheap. No frills. I remember we used to get like a bag of them for like 99 cents. It was genius. Because I would have that and that would be my treat. If I ever found any money on the floor or anything like that, I would get a bag of those. I mean, I was a pure sugar addict from a young age. I was like, I never grew up to want anything else. It's like, I didn't want drugs, didn't want cigarettes, I just wanted sugar. That was my jam. It still is my jam. I'm terrible. I don't want diabetes, but I honestly see it coming. But it was a bargain. It's like 99 cents. That would last me a while as well, like a week or so. Humbugs, very nice. Still got a chance for them actually now, but I know my teeth couldn't handle it, so just rotting away in my mouth. We used to load up. We had a lot of canned goods, boxed goods, best before date rather than completely expired goods. These are all offshoots that the supermarket had gone, it's too close to the off date, so we'll just chuck them in the food bank. So we got them at a discount. It was a really good discount as well. I mean, if I could, I might go back down to a food bank, but at the same time you need a healthcare card. At the same time I'm like, do I really need to, knowing that I've got a job that's okay? And I can do better by using, strategies for looking for bargains and things like that. The food banks are designed for people who are skin, which is why I don't think we should abuse them by using them if we don't need them. It's like, that way you're taking resources out of people's hands that really, really need them. My dad had 4 kids. He was on welfare. He had a mortgage at the time as well, 4-bedroom house, which they had bought with the intent of paying off in a couple of years. Because, like, you are insane. My dad is insane. He has these great big ideas, but there's nothing to back him up. And then my mom is expected to handle the rest, It's just like, it's okay, someone else will fix this. It's like, no, Peter Pan syndrome. You need to, if you're going to make a plan, stick with it and handle it yourself. drag other people down because you know you're going to bail later. But this is my dad's ongoing story, as I will discuss in the Peter Pan Syndrome podcast. So food banks, that was his one job. My mum was like, if you will not clean, if you will not look after the kids, you're taking the job of doing the food shopping. And even to this day, he's crap at it. He really is. He'll buy all kinds of weird shit. And you're like, why did you even buy this? He's not got any sense of responsibility. I'm surprised the kids lasted this long, quite frankly. So we had the cereal, we had the humbugs, nut meat, Sanitarium brand nut meat. It is, I would assume, soy or tofu or something like that, but nobody wanted to eat it, and it came in like what looked like a dog food can. They changed the packaging now because I found one in the shops, like the old school stuff that we found in the food bank. I found one the other week, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna buy one of these, see if it's just as disgusting as when I was a kid. I haven't eaten it yet, but I'm going to. If only for like the novelty of it. Because I remember as a kid, it was foul. It was a nauseating kind of... If I could put a sound to the taste, it would be like... You know what that feels like? Because you're like, this is not anything. This is flavorless. And it was lumpy and the texture was weird. And my dad's like, we're eating this. And he would heat it up. But he wouldn't... I don't remember him ever putting any sauce with it or anything like that. So you'd have this weird texture. It kind of reminds me of firm tofu now, because I used to eat firm tofu for a bit there when I was trying to go vegan. But it comes in a jar, it comes in a can, and it slides out like dog food, you know, that sort of. Ugh. And you're like, I don't want to eat this. Kind of like Spam as well. If you ever slid Spam out of its can, fucking gross. It's like a brick of congealed. I've yet to see if they changed or worked on it at all. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Ooh, that's cheap petrol. So, going through a petrol crisis in Australia as well. That's a whole nother podcast. It's like, our petrol ain't that great either. I know the UK, everybody's running out of petrol and money for electricity and things like that. We're not doing the electricity thing, but we are doing the petrol thing, funny enough. Thank you, war in Ukraine. I don't know how it translates, but we're going to look into it. So, there is no shame to food banks. Not everyone is going to have a consistent kind of life where they can afford everything they want. Some people are born into it. I wasn't born into it. My parents moved to Australia in 83 or something like that, 1983, with the intent that my dad would be a proper accountant and my mum would stay at home and look after the kids. That was the intent. She had 2 kids already. Got here, had a third, me, and then my sister after me. But the intent was to make something of themselves because they were 25, 26 at the time. It was never the intent. What they did was they started off in quite an affluent area. Then they moved to what was perceived to be a new area, which was going to grow. And they thought, okay, new area, cheaper accommodation, cool, we can start investing in self. Start building our home and family, things like that, just running a family. Get a full-time job. What they did not anticipate was my dad has Peter Pan syndrome and cannot hold down a job. My mum would have been, I can imagine at the time, firstly disappointed and then enraged, because she is not the kind of person that will tolerate people sitting on their ass. She will just not. Especially a grown-ass adult. She would have been losing it. I know there were hints towards it when they first started what they call courting. Like, she would go to his house over a weekend, but she'd be doing his washing. I mean, he lived with his parents, but his mum, my dad's mum, my nanny, was not the kind that lifted a finger. And Bob, who was his dad, was just a narcissistic, manipulative little prick. He was more inclined to chase skirt than actually raise a child. So he didn't come from a good background. So my mum would go over there, and she came from a family of 4 girls. My grandma, who was aggressively abusive. And my granddad Fred, who was like a very mild-mannered Fred Astaire character, actually. I'm surprised those two got together, but my grandma was fiery Irish. And Granddad Fred was English, but came from like Danish heritage, so he was very mild-mannered. He was lovely. Into this day, he's my favourite granddad, because Granddad Bob was a piece of shit. But my mum took on the fieriness of my grandma, and she applied it to a man who didn't have any sense of structure, because his mum didn't bother cleaning or anything, and his dad was just like a whore, essentially. So I don't know if he actively went out and cheated and stuff, or he's just acted like a flirt and a tease and all that shit for ego. But he had no sense of direction when it came to what masculinity should be. So my mum, frustrated at the start, used to go and do his washing, and she told me later on in life she used to hate doing it, but you know, it was necessary. She felt compelled to look after him because his parents were assholes. This translated in life because my dad never took up the mantle of trying to look after himself or trying to look after other people, really. He was like, she's going to take the reins, I might as well let her do it. And that translated to employment as well. My dad never held a job longer than 2 years, I think, like that. And he had a proper job. It was an accountant. That's a well-paying job, but he'd stick it out for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then he'd rage quit. He would literally go berserker at his boss and leave. And I remember some of his bosses. They were nice people. I'm surprised that he lost his shit. It's very strange. My mum would lose her shit as a result of that and take it out on us, because she's like, you bastard. I mean, she used to give it to him, but she used to really give it to us, because she'd get frustrated now, and of course now everything was her job and she had to handle everything. There's a lot of pressure for someone who wasn't mentally really stable to begin with. So yeah, which resulted in Dad losing his job, Mum going, fuck this, I'm going to retrain, become a teacher, and to provide, because now I have to. And my dad's one responsibility was do the food shop. If you can't provide financially, you will physically go out and do the job. As a result, you know, we ended up with a load of weird shit. My dad wasn't even responsible when he was buying content. So I can't fault it, because I know the service was there as an extreme. It's not something you pick up on a whim. It's not something you go and do, just to save a bit of cash. It's an extreme, because nothing they're selling is actually, you know, mainstream stuff. It's usually the odds and ends and the weird stuff that someone's picked up or is expired and nobody wants to buy, or is close to expiry. There's no shame in it. I mean, I hope they've improved it, because I've been watching documentaries on like BBC and stuff like that, on the Sky News and stuff like that, when they went through and they did interviews about food banks and stuff. And I know there's a lot of improvement. Like we're seeing like fresh fruit and veggies and things like that, and baby formula and stuff like that. I'm going, well, that wasn't available when I was there, but okay. I mean, mostly what you got was if it was dry boxed or canned, that was your lot. There was like a chest freezer, I remember. We used to get bottles of milk, like plastic bottles of 2-litre milk. Quite cheap, but that's about it. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't meant to be. It's a welfare system. You're meant to go in, get what you need to survive. It is very much survivalist. You're not going to get anything that's fancy. You need to be grateful for what you get, because otherwise you just won't get it. That's the tragedy of the situation, is like you get some really good people out there, they've just gone through these fucked up experiences, and they're like, really? I need to do this now? It's like, really? And I really, honestly, I sympathize with them, because I've been there and I know what it's like. Even now as a teenager, I used to go to food banks. When I was a teenager and I was in uni, and I just had next to nothing. As a student, I used food banks, because you take your little welfare card and you go, please give me top ramen. Please, I need help. I'm spending all my money on parking fees. I didn't even have a car at the time, actually, to tell the truth. It was bus fares at that point, and even then you had to use a smart rider, because it was cheaper than paying the full fare with coins. Funny enough, there's always a strategy to make it stretch further. I can tell you that. Not me. Don't. I wouldn't, unless you're like pure vegan and you can tough it out. But I would not recommend. Mix it with the sauce. I might try it with like a satay sauce or something, because it's based on tofu kind of stuff. I think the government needs to do more when it comes to funding food banks, because clearly we're going to be looking at a huge shortage of resources with, war in Ukraine. With Brexit, it's more of a case of separating ourselves from the EU and all the resources they imported cheaply. But honestly, I think the best thing the UK could do was Brexit, because it means that we isolate our stuff from the shitty business that's happening in Europe. I mean, we are still part of the UN, yes, but at the same time, as not part of the EU, we're not subject to, if someone decides to do some kind of ban with, I don't know, Poland or something like that, banning some kind of trade with Poland, we're not going to be affected. I say we. It's like I still call the UK my home, even though I've lived in Australia the majority of my life. It's like I never found a way to assimilate into this country. It never came natural to me. It's like I was born here, funny enough. I have English nationality, but in terms of the culture and stuff like that, never got a chance to. I just don't. I look at them and I'm going, this don't feel right. It's like, it's very cute as a holiday, but in terms of living here and assimilating, becoming one of us, no thank you. Which might sound a bit arrogant, because some people are like, oh my god, it's the ideal culture. It's like, oh, sort of, she'll be right, which she never fucking is. That just sounds like a cop-out to me. Beach culture, sporty. It's like, I was beach culture in high school, but not really. See, I'm going off on a tangent again, sorry. There is, I would say, possibly better conditions for food banks over here, because there is less need for them. If Australia wanted to be, they could be self-reliant. Honestly, we are essentially a breadbasket. We can grow everything we need. So could Britain, actually, to be honest, if they wanted to. America has its own options. It's only when we become, globalized neighbors that we actually make ourselves liable to trade sanctions and things like that. So we have the capacity to fund ourselves. It's by being friendly and trying to build alliances that we make ourselves liable, which is part of the game, really. It's possible with any kind of relationship with anyone, really. You make yourself liable by making yourself vulnerable. The thing is to recognize what your people need at the time. Who I consider to be my people, the UK people, these are my people. This is who I relate to. My people right now are going through electricity shortages, gas shortages. They're losing their jobs because of COVID, because of their businesses going down the tube. Brexit had an impact. Resources are not as readily available as they want. On top of this, it's like they've got the pressure of dealing with, having to use food banks, losing their job. All these kinds of horrible things where they just cannot get what they need to. Prices are going up with inflation because of wars in the Ukraine. I would never wish food banks on someone unless they were absolutely arrogant. It's like, there's always some assholes just really smug who's like, I've never had to use a food bank. And you go, right, now I want you to face what this is, because you need to know. If only to develop some sympathy. I would never wish that on someone, really, because it is a hardship. Obviously, you can make the most of it. You can see it for what it is, as a temporary solution. It is not the end of the world. You're not going to be in this forever. It's just a step up for now. So people start panicking. And there's a stigma attached to using food banks as well. It's like, oh my God, I'm incompetent. I can't provide for my family. It's like, no. That's not on you. That's not on you. If you've genuinely gone through a situation like lockdowns or COVID, and you've lost your business or you've lost your job, and there's nothing out of your control, there's nothing in your control, it's not your fault. You don't have to feel bad about using a food bank. It is absolutely not your fault. I don't want you to feel bad about having to ask for help. It's when people start feeling bad about asking for help that they stop looking for help, and things just fall to shit. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Don't become absolutely reliant on asking for help. You still need to maintain some sorts of autonomy. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Even as a kid, we ask for help all the time. I work with kids all the time. They're constantly wanting something. Especially when I'm drinking my, Pepsi or something. It's like, I want some of that. No. Go away. Get your own. I've got a job. I don't care. It will come in time. And then you too can harness the power of Pepsi. Oh my God, another sponsorship deal. Awesome. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. I mean, this is just another form of help, really. If you're accessing food banks, you might already be on the welfare system. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a temporary measure. Nothing is permanent. This does not define you. It will help you survive. It will strengthen you. Your resilience will go off the bloody chart. You'll be knowing what you are capable, what you can survive, and what you will get through. Don't see it as a bad thing. It is just different. It's not bad. You will be fine. And you will have a growing appreciation of the resources you do have as soon as you get back to what you deem as normal. So you might be eating horrible nut meat or shitty ass Space Invaders cereal for like a month or maybe a few months. But once you get back to the state you were in pre-COVID, pre-job loss, all this, you're going to have an appreciation for what is available to you at this moment. And maybe you might change some of your strategies when it comes to what you buy in the future. I know I did. I mean, I knew when I was homeless and broke and in debt and all that, when I separated from my ex-husband, I knew, okay, I know this is going to cost money. And while I was slack or relaxed, while I had money, I know it was impractical. So at this point, I'm going to change this as a temporary measure. And some things I didn't keep temporary. Some things I still do. I still love food prepping and making ration packs and things like that. I call them MREs, but essentially they're not. I'm sure the army has done a better version. Probably more nutritious as well. Most of mine consists of. At the moment, I've got snack packs where they're like 2 Kit Kats and a bag of crisps, and it's only Saturday food. It's never allowed to go past that. But it keeps me on portion control. It keeps my funds down, like when I'm spending stuff. So it's good for me at the time. But when I had money, I was just eating whatever, whenever. I didn't care. I gained weight. I had no sense of self-control. I didn't do portion control at all. And I ran out of money quite frequently. And I was like, okay, how do I make this? So you learn skills with this. It's not always a bad thing. I mean, you might go to the food bank and say, okay, what can I get? I'm going to learn how to cook with this. I'm going to share this. You might make some more friends by bartering out resources. You might be able to swap something with your neighbor. There's lots of things you will learn from using food banks, and it's not all as bad as you think. I mean, survival skills at the very bloody least, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's temporary, and you will learn, and it's a great thing to do, to be honest, if you have to. Because I can assure you, if there are people out there who have never had to use anything like a food bank, when the world goes tits up, they're not going to have a good time. They're not going to know what to do. They're going to have trouble surviving because they just basically will not have the experience and the skill set to deal with things that aren't going absolutely to plan or how they have previously experienced. It's the variation that makes us stronger. I mean, even when you're looking at things like evolution and stuff like that, it's the cross variation of genes and things like that which makes the species stronger. So when people are complaining about why are these, mixing ethnicities and stuff like that, it's like, don't be stupid. This makes the species stronger. We need to do that. Because what one set of genes has, the other might not have, and if we mix them together, there's a chance we can make the super gene and things like that. Variation is what makes us stronger. Exposure to diversity makes us stronger. It will promote your individual critical thinking. It will make you think twice before you do something stupid like buying 10 litres of ice cream and never using it because it went off, but you had the money at the time, something stupid like that. I've never done that, but, it might be a lifelong goal at one point. It's like we start realising the value of money as well. These days, I think back to when I used to buy takeaway all the time. Now, takeaway in Australia is quite expensive. Takeaway in the UK is cheap as crazy. I say cheap as chips, but chips seems to come with every kind of takeaway in the UK. I don't know why. It's odd. We get it with McDonald's or something like that. We never get it with pizza or curry or anything like that. It's like crossing genres for us. It's weird. But you do tend to find, like, in Australia, what I used to spend on, like in McDonald's, okay, for example, everybody's got a McDonald's. We can all sort of compare notes with that. I don't support McDonald's in any way. I think they're fucking nuts. Especially when they bring out toys that create all kinds of environmental issues. And don't even get me started on the meat patties. But I'm not gonna. We're not going there today. I used to work at McDonald's, but we're not going there today. When I used to spend about $15 on one meal. That's just the standard meal. I would always get large. If I was getting a McDonald's meal, it would always be a double quarter. Hang on, is that what it is? Double quarter, the double patty hamburger thingy with large chips, large Coke or whatever it is. America, they got even bigger sizes, and they wonder why they have a pandemic of fat people. I don't know why, but anyway, that was my standard. Sometimes I would get 2 burgers because I'm like, I really like the burgers, or I did at the time when I ate meat. That would come to $15, sometimes 20. When I think back to the way I used to spend money and what I can do now on a shoestring with $20 it's beyond belief. You're sitting there thinking, I can take that $20, I can buy so much shit from like a Woolworths on sale at the right time of day. It's like, I will go full mercenary with that $20. I will make that shit spread. You do reevaluate how you use money because it becomes a valuable commodity. It's not just a case of, I can do all this stuff now. It is a case of, right, I have to make this go further. Food banks act in the same way. With what you can get, you become more aware, or at least I did, of how to make food stretch further. How can I store this better to make it last longer? How can I portion this out so I can share it out across more people? It's a communal act as well. It's a bartering system. How can I share this? How can I help someone? It's charity. It's charity on charity as well. It's like you're taking help from someone in an act of a charity, and you might pass it on to someone as an act of charity. It's like you should always be keeping it in movement. If you can help someone, help them. If you can't help them, then find a way to help them. And that way they can help you. Not that you should be doing that just to expect something back, but it's a nicer way to look at things. Like, I've noticed that the world's become very selfish. I don't know if it's just, I was only born in 85. I don't know if it's an ongoing thing. It's just the standard, but it's not helpful. And everybody's suffering because of it. There's this, oh my God, don't even get me started on hoarding. Don't even. I will. That's a podcast, but it's just, the things I saw. I'm like, the COVID era. Do you remember how much everyone was a real bastard? Yes, I do. I was there. Couldn't get extra toilet paper. What the fuck? Why toilet paper? I don't know. It doesn't cure COVID. I don't know. Were they eating it? What was it? Was it like that episode of like South Park where they injected people with money because it cured AIDS? I don't know. Did I miss something here? The scientist's completely wrong. Should we be hoarding toilet paper? There was a story there. I'm going to look more into that because I, to this day, still haven't figured out why everyone hoarded toilet paper. It was horrible. But stupidly, the alternative was use tissues. It's like, grr. And me as a teacher, I have ready access to tissues. I also have ready access to toilet paper and kitchen roll, so I was fine. I don't advocate that, children. You should not go around nicking stuff. Although at a time of emergency, don't nick stuff, you get in trouble. I never did, but food banks. I do recommend them if you need them. Don't look at them as a stigmatized source of help. It does not reflect on any kind of competence level on your part, unless of course you are my dad and you tend to have Peter Pan syndrome traits. Not everyone does. Some people genuinely, as a soldier of fortune, end up in those circumstances. Not your fault. Don't feel bad about it. It is temporary. Don't rely on it heavily. Do while you need to, but you should always be looking to get out of those circumstances. And I think generally most people do. No one sits there and enjoys that. Because it shows, it affects your self-esteem and stuff like that as well, I know. As a kid, when I was a teenager and we used to have to go to food banks, I felt a bit embarrassed because I'm like, what if my friends see me here? They never saw me. It was completely out of the way. No one knew I existed. My friends probably didn't even use it themselves, or they might have, and just I wouldn't have been aware of it because, I didn't see them there. But even if, as a kid, it felt like there was a stigma attached to it. There shouldn't be. It is just a communal source of food. It is sharing. I mean, it's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with accepting help. There's nothing wrong with looking for help. Don't become incredibly reliant on it, because you're just creating false economy. And if you become too heavily reliant on it and it's not available when you need it, then you're screwed. Sorry, I'm reversing. You probably hear my beeping. I'm looking at my people, my UK people, and I'm thoroughly stressed, but I love their resilience. It's like, I know they're going through hell. I know that they can't get what they need. The stress is intense. I'm really hoping that we have some kind of attitude like when we had the Second World War, where people start pulling together. We started seeing it when we had the COVID lockdown. And I really want that sense of community to come back again. I mean, maybe this is the universe saying, hey, this is needed. I mean, you almost had it with the COVID lockdown. Let's try and pull together now with this lack of resources thing, with the lack of job thing. We can all sort of build a community about this. Because people do have a tendency to sort of isolate and become worried about their own little existence. And when that existence starts to fail, they panic. It's like, wait a minute. It turns out I do need other people. I mean, I isolate myself because I've just had a series of bad experiences with people, and I just tend to avoid them. That, and I have a natural inclination to just like the quiet and peace of being alone. I'm a bit weird that way. I enjoy a quiet, clean house away from people that like drama. I don't like drama. I really don't. That's why I ditched my ex-boyfriend. He was not a good guy. Yeah, so what, I've just pulled up to work. So what to take away from this? Food banks aren't bad. They are temporary. People can use them. If you do use them, consider it an experience to build skills and resilience. There's nothing wrong with it. You can find a variety of weird shit there. You might get annoyed eating the same shit over again for a month, but it's a learning experience. It's a learning curve. What did you learn from this? I might not want to come back to doing this again. So it kind of preps you up that way as well. It motivates you to get out of the situation. We need to drop the stigma on it, because it is just another form of help. There's nothing wrong with getting help. There's nothing wrong with giving help. Please do give help. Everyone's having a shit time right now. I need you to give help. Don't just think I'm going to do me and that's it. Oh, I hate that mentality. I really do. I hate that so much. I'm just going to do me and fuck everyone else. I hate that. Because you never know what anyone's going through, and you never know what they're willing to vocalize about what they're going through. Because there is a sense of losing face as well. It's like nobody wants to come across as an incompetent asshole. So they will hide things and they will lie about stuff just to, try and belong and fit in and present the front where they're okay and everything's going fine and no panic. It's like, that is not true. We need to face the reality that some shit goes tits up and we need to work on that. That's okay. It's just another thing to work on. So be honest with yourself. Be honest with other people. If you need help, ask for help. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody's human. We all need help. We all had a parent at one stage, maybe. I don't know. Some people didn't have parents. Some people had a parent figure. They would have given help. You would ask them for help. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm hoping that we'll have some kind of financial recovery soon, because I don't like seeing my people suffer. I know what it's been like to go through that. I can't imagine anyone having to live on that. I know some people live on it. I'm going, you guys gotta be the most Spartan motherfuckers I've ever met. If you can survive on food banks and stuff like that, my hat's off to you. That's some badass shit right there. It's like, you need to teach us, because there are some people that is all green and new to them and they don't know what to do. So these people we should be going to for help. It's like, if you can't give physical things, give information, give advice, give strategies. This is what we should be doing. It's forming alliances for great good, for survival. It's all like that. I mean, it sounds like military tactics, but at the same time, do you want to win? Do you want to get further? We all need to help each other. That's what it is. We all need to pull together as a community, share resources if you can. If you can't resources, share words of wisdom, something like that. I mean, feeling, just look after each other. What else can I say? I'm looking at the other teachers looking at me, why aren't you sitting in a car? I want you to have a really great day, okay? I want you to go out and do something with your life. I want you to go and have a great one. I mean, seriously, we're all going through shit right now. This is not our fault. We have been placed as children, and children, we never grow up. We just get older. We just get bigger. We are still kids. We are still facing things that are alien to us. We don't understand circumstances that are forced on us, and we don't know how to react. I want you to go out and actually prove to yourself that you are more than capable of dealing with everything. Don't stress the small stuff. I know the small stuff is stressable because you're like, okay, the small stuff leads to the big stuff. But I really want you to just go out, have a good day, accept what you can. Be grateful for what you get, because you never know when you're going to get it, right? If you find some weird nut meat, don't eat it. Or do eat it and take it as a learning curve, you know? It's like, I've got to eat my can of nut meat. I really don't want to, man. But I'm gonna, because I'm going to be brave. Stress less. It's Tuesday. We still got 3 more days. I've got 3 more podcasts to do. I really want you to have a great day. Please go out and have fun. Look after yourself. Look after each other. Have a good one. I will talk to you tomorrow. All right? Bye-bye.